Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. Lots of news breaking, especially in the political world where it looks like current President Biden is announcing his reelect tomorrow with a little launch video. So we'll tell you everything we know about that, including there's some pretty revealing new polls, not just about him, but also about the Republican primary and potential head-to-head matchups. So we'll get into all of that. We also finally did get a decision from the Supreme Court with regards to what's going to happen in the interim with that abortion pill, which was a Texas judge said, okay, no abortion pill. We're going to rescind that across the country. There was another judge that said, no, we have to keep the status quo in place. Supreme Court is saying for now, while appeals work their way through the system, the current status quo is going to remain in place. So we'll break all of that down for you, as well as the politics around abortion. We have some new numbers there as well. Elon doing a million different Elon things for the past few days.
Stripped of our blue checks, Krystal.
Yes.
It's a sad day here.
Very sad. It's the end of an era, truly. We're devastated here. And another end of an era, BuzzFeed News, now out of business. It's kind of crazy. I mean, this was really a news organization that sort of like defined the 2010s. They were really riding high. They raised like $700 million.
Yes. I have a lot to say.
Yeah, there is a lot to dig into there about like the past of news media, the present, the future. So we'll get into all of that as well. Before we do any of that, though, we have a big thank you to everybody who showed up to help support us, and to build on a new set that we were very excited about.
Yeah, you guys are seriously amazing. Thank you, everybody who signed up for yearly and for lifetime members. We've officially paid for one box of new lights, so thank you all very, very much there. Look, we have shelled out the biggest expense in the history of Breaking Points. We are going to have the set basically, hopefully, brand new and ready exactly on our 2-year anniversary. So, as we've said, given the cash flow situation so much and how much it costs, if you are able to help us out by becoming a yearly and a lifetime member, especially, it really does mean the world. It really helps us out to pay our bills here. Many people have been asking also, while of course we would prefer if people were to sign up as premium members, we do have a donation button on our website. You can sign up, or donate whatever you guys want for anything, even at any tier, breakingpoints.com. It really does help out the show at this time. And we're very excited to show it to you, to show you all the new merchandise. We've been working so hard behind the scenes, and to see so many of you, heeding the call, it's really validating, and it just means a lot to both of us.
It's really sort of Breaking Points 2.0.
Yeah,
in terms of the look, for sure. And the goal is twofold. Number one, to continue to bring you guys the best possible quality content that we can, and also to try to expand the universe of viewers that might find the show appealing. And one thing that has been true from the beginning, from back when we were at Rising, is the production value has always been a core part of what brought in a broader audience. So thank you guys so much for helping us out there. And if you are able to, and you haven't yet, breakingpoints.com, we greatly appreciate it. All right. So the big political news this week is we had a couple scoops from various news outlets at the end of last week. Put this up on the screen. Looks like President Biden is going to be announcing his re-election campaign next week. Go ahead, A1, put this up on the screen, guys. They've targeted Tuesday to release an announcement video to coincide with the 4-year anniversary of his 2020 campaign launch. Now, there had been a lot of speculation about when exactly he was going to pull the trigger here. Not a lot of doubt that he ultimately would, although given his age and the concerns that a lot of even Democrats, both elite and certainly in the base, have over his ability to effectively run a campaign, effectively, hold the office of the presidency for another 4 years, given that he is already the oldest president in history. There was always a little bit of a question mark. So all of those questions being put to bed. Now there are, every reporter who is putting this information out there is saying, listen, this is a man who can change his mind right up until the last minute. So you don't really know until it actually happens, but it looks like this is coming tomorrow. So the details that we've got here, and mostly the Washington Post had sort of the specifics about what this is going to look like. They're calling it a soft launch. There's not a big speech planned. It's just a launch video. He recorded it mostly after he got back from his trip to Ireland. They also are planning some sort of like a donor meeting. They said on the heels of the planned re-election announcement, Biden will meet with top Democratic donors in Washington, because that, of course, has got to be the priority at the end of next week. Biden's team has invited roughly 50 to 100 of the party's top fundraisers and bundlers to a Friday night event with the president, with the goal of energizing contributors and rallying support. Here's more on that because Biden is very indecisive. And so it seems like he decided to pull the trigger kind of in the last few days. There was a lot of debate whether it's better to go ahead and get in and really start the fundraising circuit. Biden doesn't have a big grassroots base, so he's got to do this traditional go and have the chicken dinner and give the speech and fly around the country, et cetera, or whether he should wait. And, the case to wait was basically campaigns are really rigorous and they're very difficult. And this is an old man who doesn't do all that well when his schedule is super packed and when he has to be in front of people in front of cameras. So looks like they're going forward with tomorrow. They say that top fundraising officials at the DNC scrambled to make dozens of phone calls, frequently ending up in voicemails, inviting top donors for a hastily arranged summit with the president to plan events. Other staffers were dispatched to build a campaign website that could receive the first donations of what some in the party believe could amount to a $2 billion effort, counting the spending of outside groups. So that is what we know.
Yeah, I just think it's lame, but it is also vintage Biden. I mean, Trump did a big speech, and I don't really understand why, when you're the president, you're the sitting president of the United States, you don't use the one thing that you can always have at your beck and call, the mainstream media. I mean, he can call a conference, they have to cover him day in and day out, and instead, you're behind the scenes, Krystal, you're releasing a video, very low energy. Also, then you're immediately going to a behind the closed door donor conference. I mean, this is not the way that these things are traditionally done.
Yeah.
Whenever Bill Clinton, announced his re-election campaign, it was a big to-do. I'm thinking of Trump also. I mean, he immediately ran for president. Barack Obama, it was a big, massive event whenever he announced his re-election campaign. I mean, it's one of the benefits of being the president of the United States is that you are the center of all of attention. On the other hand, maybe Biden doesn't want people paying attention to him. And given what we're about to talk about, polling-wise and all that, probably smart. Yeah, it's not like people want him to actually run, and the more people see him, they're like, I'm not so sure about that.
That's what I was going to say is, listen, last campaign, he was rescued by COVID, both because Trump did such a terrible job handling it, and people were like, okay, we got to get this guy out of here. This is a disaster. But also, and maybe primarily, because Biden didn't really have to campaign. And, what we have seen since he's been in office is he's basically continued that sort of basement strategy. When he is in front of cameras, when he is taking questions, it doesn't go well. So, yeah, I think they are making the smartest decision they possibly could, given the feeble candidate, frankly, that they have. I mean, listen, I've been thinking a lot about some Dianne Feinstein comparisons here, and I'm not arguing that Biden is as far gone as she is, where she doesn't even remember people who have been in her life, her entire career, et cetera. But part of how she was able to get reelected is she didn't do debates. She didn't do town halls. And so she was able to sort of short circuit the workings of democracy by her and her staff hiding the fact that she was so, at this point, incapacitated. There is a similar energy here of they don't want him to have to do debates. They're not going to host primary debates in the Democratic Party, which, all their talk of democracy seems to fly out the window. They have put him in front of the cameras fewer times than any president in modern history, fewer interviews, fewer press conferences, just much less availability to the press. Again, in spite of all the rhetoric about, oh my gosh, the media, democracy dies in darkness, suddenly, we have a president who still isn't in front of the cameras and has no interest really in subjecting himself to tough interviews. And I'll get to that specific details in a moment. But that's clearly going to be the strategy here. They're clearly just betting on not what Biden has done or that Biden is a great candidate or that Biden has a great vision, but they're just betting on Trump is worse or whoever comes out of the Republican primary is worse. That's a bet that might pay off. But let me show you where Biden sits today in terms of his poll numbers. This is from a new NBC News poll that was a fairly deep dive on both sides of the political aisle. Biden's approval today sits at 41%. Approve, 54% disapprove. That's not very good. Should Biden run for president in 2024? They asked 70% of people said no. Only 26%, only a quarter of the country said yes. So not great there. And if you dig into those numbers of the 70% who say, please don't run again, 69% say that age is one reason for them wishing that he wouldn't run again. And a majority say that is the number one reason why they feel he should not run again. Now, on the flip side, here's the record of some of the achievements Biden, can legitimately run on here. passed the American Rescue Plan. In my opinion, that's one of the best pieces of legislation that has passed through the Congress and been signed into law in my lifetime. It genuinely provided very effective short-term support for the American people. Of course, those provisions have almost all lapsed at this point. He withdrew from Afghanistan, passed the CHIPS Act to invest in semiconductor production, bring that back here. We have the Inflation Reduction Act, which has a lot of clean energy tax credits and an effort to transition towards a green energy future. We have student loan debt cancellation. We have a new Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and we have the bipartisan infrastructure bill. I don't know why we made the choice to capitalize some of those and not the others.
Shout out to the graphics team. They've got Trump. They've got Trump-style capitalization. Look,
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Ketanji Brown Jackson. This is not an endorsement, but we're just laying it out. We're like, that's probably what he's going to run on. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I don't even think he's really running on policy. He's more running on, I'm not Trump. And yeah, you may not like me. I may be too old. I can barely finish a sentence, but I'm not the other guy. It worked out for him once. Why wouldn't you run the exact same playbook a second time? I guess, I don't know. I just find it so pathetic, Krystal, that you're going to announce your candidacy as for re-election for incumbent president of the United States with the greatest megaphone in the history of the world, the bully pulpit, and you're going to do it as a Twitter video. I mean, that seems nuts to me. But I also think this very unique set of circumstances is probably the best one, given how people don't want to see this man go through it. You know, it's like it really is almost, I wouldn't call it revulsion, but people feel really uncomfortable every time they see him speak. I feel the same way.
It's hard to watch.
It is hard to watch.
Yeah, even if you like Biden, I think it's hard to watch. And I do think, you know, within certainly the Democratic Party, I think also among a lot of swing voters, many of whom did decide to vote for Biden, they appreciate that he was able to defeat Trump, those who did not like Donald Trump and wanted to move on, and they are wishing that we could turn the page and have, you know, someone who has more of a vision, more of an ability to articulate that vision, more of a sort of a projection of confidence and competence in terms of just navigating the office. And of course, 4 years down the road, Joe Biden is not getting any younger. Neither is Donald Trump, by the way. But Biden, you know, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, number one, Trump is a little bit younger than him, but also there just isn't that same visible degradation in his mental abilities that we have seen over the past, let's say, decade with Joe Biden. So let me get to some of those numbers I was alluding to earlier about, you know, Biden's basement strategy. Put this up on the screen. So this is since he has held office. In the 100 years since Calvin Coolidge took office, only Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan held as few news conferences each year as the current occupant of the Oval Office. They give some examples here. He abandoned, while he was in Ireland, the decades-old tradition of holding a news conference while abroad. On Thursday, he was meeting with the president of Colombia. The two did not hold a news conference together, another practice of his predecessors. After the meeting, the Colombian president took questions from reporters alone, and Biden retired, I guess, to his office. Despite his press secretary pledging Mr. Biden would bring transparency and truth back to the government, in his first 2 years, the president granted the fewest interviews since Mr. Reagan's presidency, only 54. By contrast, Trump gave 202 during the first 2 years of his presidency. Barack Obama gave 275. There's also a noteworthy selection of interviewers. So rather than sitting for more adversarial, or even with the mainstream newspapers, he hasn't sat with the Washington Post or the New York Times, which is also, you know, very unusual. They pick more friendly Drew Barrymore to ask him about, like, the poems he writes for his wife and things like that are just total softball questions. So, you know, this has been, ever since his campaign, clearly the strategy is to keep him away from the cameras, try to as carefully control the environments that he's in as they possibly can, and hope that in terms of this campaign, the opposition is distasteful enough that they're able to get through. You know, it goes right back to what Ron Klain tweeted about when Emmanuel Macron was able to win in France in spite of a 30-something% approval rating. Well, it was, even though people didn't like him, they felt he was better than his opponent, and that's what they're banking on here very clearly.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Krystal. And I think A5, let's go and put that please up on the screen, guys, just shows you very much how he's underwater on some of the most important issues that are before people. We pulled this from a poll that we've shown you guys previously. Immigration at 35%, the economy, 37%, gun policy, 37%, national security, 44%, China relations, 40%, and even environmental policy, 46%. And if you consider like what's very animating to the Democratic base, that's going to be healthcare, the economy, and environmental policy. He's underwater on those issues. And amongst Republicans, obviously, he's going to be underwater there. But I think most importantly, just in general, he is not above on almost anything. At the same time, though, we have to compare those to Trump's numbers. And it's just one of those crazy lesser of two evils elections, the second time in a row. And it's genuinely, it's just pathetic. I mean, I just can't believe, we're looking at that. I'm watching the Oval Office basically be used as like some nursing home here. And apparently people are cool with that because the alternative to many people is also just as bad, if not worse. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how we got here, but looking at all of this, there's nothing positive that is happening in this campaign. And I think that is that's really sad to see and to be able to cover this for a second time in a row.
Yeah, I mean, listen, nothing is a done deal yet, either on the Republican side or on the Democratic side. Our national history, our political history is nothing but a lot of surprises, a lot of twists and turns, plot twists, so you never know how this is going to turn out. But yeah, right now you're facing an election between two people that the overwhelming majority of the country wish, not only do they not want them to be the nominee, they don't want them to run at all, and yet these are very likely to be the two choices. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us. And if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.